The next witness is James. How do you pronounce your last name, James?
Montagnino.
Montagnino.
Can I object because I have personal knowledge of his criminal activities?
There's no objection right here. We're going to let Mr. Montagnino make his comments. And if you have comments to make, if you're on the list, then we can listen to your comments, or we can talk to me after this is over, and then we can follow up. Okay? Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Senator. I just want to begin by saying that I don't have an axe to grind. I'm not here with a specific gripe about anything in particular with regard to myself on a personal level. I've been an employee of the Unified Court System since 1995. As I've been a court attorney referee for the last 10 years. I started out my legal career in the Bronx District Attorney's Office. I was a prosecutor in the Westchester DA's office. I was a legal aid lawyer in Westchester. I was principal law clerk to a county judge for 5 years in Westchester. The last 3 years I've been a court attorney referee here in the Capital District, and I love my job. And one thing I've learned in years in the judiciary is that with every decision a judge makes, that judge makes one temporary friend and one permanent enemy. And this is something that really has to be considered when weighing the probative value of complaints that are made against judges over the course of the years. I can say with pride that my experience in the Capital District, the 3rd Judicial District, has been wonderful over the last 3 years. As a court attorney referee, I'm assigned to the chambers of various judges on a rotating basis. I've worked with Supreme Court justices, Court of Claims judges, county judges, a family court judge, some city court judges. I've been all around the 3rd District, and I can say categorically that the judges of this district do their jobs to the best of their ability. They are hardworking, they are ethical people. And one of the big reasons for that is that the administrative judge for this district, George Cerizia, is a man of the highest moral and ethical caliber. And he sets the tone for the way business is conducted in this district. Having said that, I'm here because in the 7 years that I worked as a court attorney referee assigned to the matrimonial part in Westchester County, that same condition did not apply to Westchester County. That for years in Westchester, I, having been assigned to matrimonial cases, saw on a regular basis that the district administrative judge entertained ex parte communications from well-connected attorneys and well-connected litigants, and those ex parte communications often resulted in transfers of cases from one judge to another. In one case, the change of a decision that a judge had already signed and sent out to the parties based upon ex parte communications. I saw this for years and finally decided that I had to take action. And I brought an internal complaint to the various chief administrative judges in the Office of Court Administration, and the result of that was retaliation against me, not by OCA, but by the target, by the administrative judge. I'm going to cut through some of the details and get to the point what brings me here today, Senator. I can certainly understand the Commission on Judicial Conduct taking a jaundiced eye looking at a complaint brought by a litigant who lost a case in court. In Westchester County, I filed a complaint ultimately with the Commission on Judicial Conduct that was detailed. It named names, it gave cases, it gave dates. Attached to it were photographs of dumpsters. Dumpsters of court records that were ordered destroyed. Matrimonial files by law must be retained permanently. They were destroyed. It would have been one thing if I had been the only complainant, Senator, but a retired acting justice of the Supreme Court, Fred L. Shapiro, sent his own complaint to the Commission on Judicial Conduct against the same administrative judge, Judge Francis Nicolai, alleging the same kinds of abuses, naming names, giving dates, giving information that he had personally obtained. And it wasn't just the two of us, Senator. There was a third individual, the principal law clerk to a Supreme Court justice in the 9th Judicial District, Barry Swirsky, sent his own complaint to the Commission on Judicial Conduct with his information on routine, regular, consistent patterns of misconduct whereby Judge Nicolai would steer cases when a lawyer who had the right connections didn't like the way his matrimonial case was being handled. He could go to Judge Nicolai without, of course, opposing counsel having any idea of it, explain the fact that he had a problem with the judge who was assigned to the case, and lo and behold, the case would be reassigned to a more sympathetic judge. There were written complaints. A law guardian who was involved in a child custody proceeding where the judicial hearing officer who was presiding over that case ordered that the father have the right to see his children and made it so under supervised conditions to protect everybody's safety. That litigant went ex parte to Judge Nicolai, and Judge Nicolai told that judicial hearing officer to change his decision. He did that and then complained about it. The law guardian, the attorney for the children in that case, wrote a letter herself to Judge Nicolai and said to him, "You can't do this. This is improper. This is the worst of ex parte communications." And what did that law guardian get for her troubles? That letter that was sent to Judge Nicolai, he forwarded on to the woman who was in charge of the law guardian panel with a cover letter saying, "For whatever action you deem appropriate." The bottom line, Senator, is that without a hearing, without an investigation, without any contact with any of the three members of the court system and retired member of the court system who brought the complaints, no contact with us, no documents subpoenaed, no documents requested, no information requested, no testimony taken, no witnesses put under oath. The Commission on Judicial Conduct, in one sentence, dismissed all three complaints against Judge Nicolai, and that was the end of the matter, with no accountability, no explanation, no transparency. And so I think, Senator, that at the very least, Mr. Tembekian himself mentioned it this morning, and the Commission has year after year in their annual report themselves asked for it. Open up the proceedings to the public. Why should this be secret? Judges are public officials. They have a public trust. Many of our judges are elected officials. The public has a right to know how complaints against judges are handled. I'm sensitive to the concerns that many judges have because of the fact that they are either appointed or elected officials, that abuses can occur, that frivolous complaints can be lodged for purposes of political gain, or, as happens very, very often, most of the complaints, I'm sure Mr. Tembekian will confirm, most of the complaints come from litigants who simply lost. I know from personal experience, having presided over contested matrimonial cases for 7 years, every day of the week, Monday to Friday, you can imagine, Senator, it's human nature. If I make a ruling that says this parent will have custody of the child and the other parent will not, how often do you think the parent who loses goes home and says, "Well, I'm just an unfit parent and that's why I lost"? That's not the way it works. We know that. So it's so common, particularly in family cases, custody cases, and matrimonial cases. The litigant who loses frequently will try to blame someone. It's my lawyer's fault. My lawyer did something wrong. It's the judge's fault. The judge did something wrong. Most of the time we know that's not so. The problem is, though, when you have in with those thousands of complaints that get dismissed without investigation, where you have a complaint that wasn't brought by a disgruntled litigant or a disgruntled former employee, but brought by three people on the inside of the court system who give information with dates and names and places and photographs and copies of documents, and it's just tossed aside.
My question to you is, I'm assuming there was some sort of retaliation because of these allegations that you made, correct?
Yes.
And that resulted into negative evaluations, is that correct?
No, Senator. I've never had a negative evaluation. In fact, what happened, since you asked the question, I didn't want to get into personal things, but I'm glad to do that. Judge Nicolai essentially opened his file of every complaint that any litigant who wasn't happy with the result of their matrimonial cases had with me. And he gave that over to the Inspector General for the Unified Court System. I went through about a month and a half of hell, having to answer for every decision that anybody had a question about. Why did you rule this way? Why did you say this? Did you say this? Did you talk to this litigant? Did you not talk to this litigant? I had to answer.
That was a form of retaliation.
And at the end of all that,
At the end, what happened?
at the end, the head of human relations said to me orally, I got nothing in writing. She said, I want you to know there have been no negative findings against you. And your personnel file, she gave me a full copy of the personnel file. She said, it will not even reflect the fact that an investigation had ever been taken against you.
And I think being that if you have complaints of individuals on the inside, you would probably want to look at that a little bit closer because of the positions that you have.
But there was a little bad news attached. I got transferred.
You got transferred up to what?
Well, I was ordered transferred to Bronx County. And I made an arrangement. I said, look, I'd rather be transferred where we have our second home up in Saratoga Springs. We love upstate New York. If you can do that, it'll be voluntary. If I'm forced to go elsewhere, then I'd consider that a retaliatory employment act under the whistleblower law, and where it would go from there would be something else. And they were kind enough, they accommodated the request, and so I voluntarily transferred up here.
Okay. Mr. Yeah, I got 5 minutes. I know.
I'd like to know what happened to my transcript for you.
You don't have, excuse me, you don't have the floor. Hello, we're trying to be courteous here.
I'm sorry.
You don't have the floor. Mr. Montagnino, thank you very much for your testimony here today.
Thank you, Senator.
And if I could just have a 2-minute break, I have to make a quick phone call, 2-minute break.